Welcome back, explorers. In this video, I'm going to briefly cover mixing the output values from multiple calculations. And I'm going to actually use a couple images throughout a lot of these. I have some vertical bars being output using the sawtooth function that I'm doing right here. I'm just kind of adjusting the scale a little bit. And then I'm also outputting some circular waves using the distance value and a sine repeat function. And that looks like this. And so we're going to take these two values and mix them together a few different ways. And so here's an example of it actually just adding them together, adding the values together. It ends up looking like this, and you can tell that some of the values are kind of blown out because the value is greater than 1. And so the next line or the next section here actually just takes that value, that same add value, but it scales the output down by half, so essentially cutting the brightness down on that image. So here's what that looks like. And then using the subtract function, we're just subtracting those values. So that should just make sense. It's subtracting the value of the circular waves from the vertical bars. And then the next mixing function that we're using is mix maximum, which ends up taking the brightest value from either of the images and using that. So kind of an interesting effect that gives us. And in a similar fashion, we can mix using the minimum value, and that just takes the darker of the two values, which ends up looking like this. Another way you can mix together is you can use multiplication to mix the values together, and that looks like this. And it's basically multiplying the values together, and that provides an interesting result for certain types of uses, because anything times 0 is just 0, and anything times 1 is itself, and so that can be used to kind of mask out images and things. And then there's also the idea of inverting the color. Now this isn't technically mixing anything together, but it just takes an image. So in this case, like the sawtooth image, we just take those values and invert them, and they flip the other way. And then finally, we have the opacity type of mixing. And this uses an additional number to calculate how transparent or opaque the second image is. And so you can see by this animation that as we adjust the opacity over time, we kind of fade from one image to another. Essentially, we start with the second image transparent and make it less transparent until it's fully opaque. And the intro this time was just taking that maximum image we had done before and mixing it towards the minimum image over time, which essentially just fades between those two images. And that's about it for mixing the output values. So thank you for watching, and come explore with me again.